Hi everyone, this is For the Love of Comics, and in this video we'll be taking a look at the earliest issues and some of the earliest stories of Usagi Yojimbo. If you're interested in a general introduction to this wonderful series, check out my What is Usagi Yojimbo video linked above. But if not, grab a drink, settle down, and let's take a quick look at around 50 issues that tell us how Usagi Yojimbo got started. Stan Sakai debuted Usagi Yojimbo in the pages of Albedo Anthropomorphics, an anthology of anthropomorphic or human-like animals comic series. Albedo is credited with starting or kickstarting the craze with anthropomorphic animal comics in the mid-1980s. Usagi's first appearance was in Albedo issue 2 in November of 1984. Albedo 2 had a very low print run, only 2,000 copies, and is extremely hard to find. Albedo number 2 contained the story The Goblin of Adachigahara and told of Usagi's encounter with a goblin terrorizing a particular house, but also gave background on how he had become a Ronin, how he had become a masterless samurai. Albedo number 3 and Albedo number 4 in April 1985 and July 1985 presented the next Usagi story, which was a two-parter and was called Lone Rabbit and Child. A very cool thing about Albedo number 3 is that the back cover is actually an Usagi cover done as if it is a manga right to left comic. Lone Rabbit and Child introduced the characters of Lord Noriyuki and Tomoe, who would become vital and important supporting characters for the rest of the Usagi saga. After issue 4 came out in July of 1985, Stan Sakai moved Usagi Yojimbo over to Fantagraphics and their monthly anthology of anthropomorphic animals. That series was called Critters. Usagi appeared in the very first issue of Critters, which was published in June of 1986. Critters 1 included the story Bounty Hunter, which introduced the character of Gen, the rhino bounty hunter, who would go on to become a major character in the Usagi universe. Critters number 3 came out in August of 1986 and had the story Horse Thief. This was followed by the Usagi Yojimbo Summer Special in October of 1986. The Summer Special reprinted the earlier stories of Usagi from Albedo, The Goblin of Adachigahara, Lone Rabbit and Child Part 1 and 2, and also included a new story, The Confession. Usagi Yojimbo Summer Special was actually a pilot for the Usagi Yojimbo series that Fantagraphics would launch, taking him from the pages of Critters into his own series. But for the time being, Usagi continued in Critters. In number 6, there was the story A Quiet Meal, which showed off how good Usagi really is without shedding any blood, and issue number 7 had the story Blind Swordspig, which introduced the character of Zato Ino, the Blind Swordspig. Like many of the characters in Usagi Yojimbo, including Usagi himself, Zato Ino is based on a legendary Japanese samurai. March and April of 1987 saw the release of issues 10 and 11 of Critters, which contained the two-part story Homecoming. Homecoming saw Usagi return to his hometown and meet with Mariko, his childhood flame, Kenichi, a rival for Mariko's affections, and their child Jotaro. Mariko, Kenichi, and Jotaro would go on to play significant roles in the Usagi Yojimbo saga, and Homecoming Part 1 and 2 made for a truly emotional story, first indicating that there was much greater depth to this badass samurai who we've been following so far. Number 14 was the last issue in which Usagi Yojimbo appeared in Critters as a regular feature. He would immediately start appearing in Usagi Yojimbo, the series also brought out by Fantagraphics. Usagi did return to Critters for one-off stories over the next few years, but for now, Critters saw the return of Gen, the rhino bounty hunter, and the last story for the anthology series. Of course, Fantagraphics had piloted Usagi Yojimbo with the Summer Special the year before, and 1987, July, saw the publication of Usagi Yojimbo 1, containing the stories Samurai Part 1 and Part 2, which showed his early training with Sensei Katsuichi. September, October, and November of 1987 saw the publications of number 2, number 3, and number 4 of Usagi Yojimbo. These issues contained Samurai's Part 3 and 4, Part 5 and 6, and Part 7 and 8. These 8 stories are collected in the trade paperback Samurai Volume 2 of Usagi Yojimbo. Samurai also contains issue number 5, which had the story The Silk Fair, which sees a silk town being protected from bandits by Usagi, and number 6, which contains 3 short stories, Kappa, Zilla, and The Test, which are loosely connected. Issues 1 through 6 of the Usagi Yojimbo series are collected in the second trade volume Samurai. The first trade volume, Ronin, collects all of the Albedo and Critters stories, everything that came before the main series of Fantagraphics. Number 8, published in May of 1988, had the story A Mother's Love, a truly gut-punch, emotionally wrenching story of a mother who has a unique assignment for Usagi. Number 9, in July of 1988, saw the return of the blind swords pig Zato Ino. Number 10, published in August of 1988, contained the story Blade of the Gods, which introduced Jay, one of the most evil and interesting villains in the entire Usagi saga. This also contained a backup story by Peter Laird, in which Usagi met one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Issue 11, September of 1988, had the story The Teacup, in which we see Gen again, and Usagi and Gen embark upon an absurd Gru the Adventurer style story. There is also in this issue a story by Sergio Aragonés of Gru. Issue 12 was published in October of 1988 and contained the story The Shogun's Gift, in which Tomoe and Usagi have to recover a valuable sword. So issues 7 through 12 are collected in Usagi Yojimbo trade paperback volume 3, The Wanderer's Road. December of 1988 and January of 1989 saw the release of issues 13 and 14 of Usagi Yojimbo. Issues 13 and 14 started the Dragon Bellow conspiracy arc, which would span 6 issues and became a high for the series so far. This was the first epic storyline that brought in characters that had appeared throughout the series into one convoluted story full of conspiracy that put them all at odds with each other and in alliances with each other, and showed us connections between the worlds of Usagi Yojimbo in a way that hadn't been done before. The Dragon Bellow conspiracy is widely considered to be where Usagi went up another level, where the depth of the storytelling was put on full display, and alongside the depth of the character work, you could also see an epic storyline connecting the world and the politics of the land that Usagi and his friends live in. Issues 15 and 16 continue the story of the Dragon Bellow conspiracy, part 3 and part 4, March of 1989 and May of 1989. In issue 15, Usagi goes undercover in an attempt to rescue Tomoe. In issue 16, Zato Ino and Gen meet. Issues 17 and 18 finished off the Dragon Bellow conspiracy storyline. 17 saw the climax in an assault on the fortress, very Kurosawa influenced, and 18 dealt with the aftermath and consequences of what had just happened over the last 6 issues. Issues 13 through 18 were collected together in the trade paperback volume 4, The Dragon Bellow Conspiracy. November of 1989 saw the publication of the first Usagi Yojimbo color special. This contained Tomoe's story and told of how she came up to be in the service of Lord Noriyuki. Issue 19 came out in December 1989 and had a story about a family feud over an heirloom sword. And issue 20 came out in February of 1990 and dealt with gamblers with the backdrop of a kite festival, one of the many wonderful examples of using cultural research and traditions in telling the story of this Ronin. Issue 21, published in April of 1990, and issue 22, published in May of 1990, is a 2-part story, Bloodwings Part 1 and Part 2, in which the Bats, the Nico Ninja clan, were introduced. Issues 23 and 24 tell of the Lone Goat and Kid, an assassin for hire who travels with his young child. Issues 19 through 24 are collected in the trade paperback Lone Goat and Kid, Volume 5 of Usagi Yojimbo. Issue number 25 was published in November of 1990, contains the story The Bridge, which tells the story of a demon on a bridge, which is adapted from a Japanese legend and a famous kabuki play. Issue 26 contains the story The Duel, which tells of a sporting bet that gets out of hand. This is based on a single scene from a Kurosawa movie. Issue number 27, published in March of 91, contains the story My Lord's Daughter, in which Usagi tells a story of him versus a horde of demons. Issue 28 and 29 are the first two parts of the four-part story Circles. Circles is one of the most emotional Usagi Yojimbo stories. It tells of his return to his hometown in order to find out what happened to his sensei Katsuichi, and encounters again Mariko, Kenichi, and Jotaro, whom he had met earlier in Homecoming Part 1 and Part 2. Issues 28, 29, 30, and 31 make up Circles. Again, one of the most emotional and most interesting Usagi stories. There's a lot of action in it, but it really is the relationships and the reveals and the storyline behind the action that makes this arc what it is. Issues 25 through 31 are collected in Usagi Yojimbo Trade Paperback Volume 6, Circles. In between Circles, between July of 91, which is when Circles Part 2 was published, and September of 91, where Circles Part 3 was published, we saw the publication of the second Usagi Yojimbo color special from Fantagraphics. This contained the story The Doors. Issues 32 and 33 were standalone stories. 32 was published in February of 1992, 33 in April of 1992. 32 introduced the fox thief Kitsune, who again becomes a major part of future storylines as well, and 33 told the story of a cursed town and a restless soldier's spirit, which brings us to the final arc of the Fantagraphics series of Usagi Yojimbo. Issues 34, 35, and 36 are the first three parts of the final 5-issue arc Gen. Gen Part 1, Lady Asano's story, Gen Part 2, Sins of the Father, and Gen Part 3, Lady Asano's Revenge. Issue number 35 is the first issue I know of where the cover is not by Stan Sakai. It's instead a wonderful painted cover by Ken Stacey. Issues 37 and 38 finish off Gen's story, as well as the Fantagraphics series of Usagi Yojimbo. Issue 37, February 93, sees the return of Kitsune, where Usagi and Gen meet up with the fox thief, and issue 38 features the last Ino story, where Usagi and Gen try to save their one-time enemy Zato Ino's life. Issues 32 through 38 were collected in Trade Paperback Volume 7, Gen's story. Although issue 38 was the last issue in the Fantagraphics series, this was not by any means the end of Usagi Yojimbo. This is just March of 93, and as of 2018, Usagi Yojimbo is still being published. Usagi moved from Fantagraphics to Mirage Studios almost immediately. In fact, the Mirage Studios series picks up maybe an hour after this issue ends. But as Miyamoto Usagi himself has said,